Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I want to tell you a story. I had an opportunity this week to look into my past and to look into how it affects me now, to look at it closely. And I came away with a couple of observations. And the main one is that I have spent a great deal of time trying to not see racism. That doesn't make sense to a whole lot of people. Some people often accuse black folks of pulling the race card when we live in a system that is a society that is steeped in racism in every one of its systems. And they accuse us of pulling the race card. And I can say I know thousands and thousands and thousands of black folks, and I know them well. And of all of them, I'll say maybe two of them are people who pull the race card. And those of us who see that and know it are quick to correct it because we don't like to call out racism without all the supporting evidence and the facts and the research. We don't like to call it out because we want to progress, we want to move forward. And so, very often, we won't say, especially in tight, intimate spaces. I'm not talking about pointing out who is a racist. I'm talking about pointing out situations that are steeped in racism. I was asked a question about my mother and her physical and emotional and verbal abuse towards me. And I laughed to myself and I answered it the same way people answer when you're dealing with something that you know is steeped in racism. If you're looking at a history of a place and talking about the slavery that went on there, and people will say, well, it's complicated. It's complicated. We can't really talk about it. It's complicated. And so this person said, well, your mother was abusive, and how did you survive, and how are you able to be who you are in spite of that? And I said, it's complicated. Seriously? It's amazing to me that we cannot make the connection of the fact that my mother beat me because her mother beat her, because her mother beat her, because someone was beaten and whipped and hung up, strung up, beaten, brine and salt poured into the wounds and left there to hang until you understood and everybody else watching understood. And if that wasn't enough, Jim Crow. And if that wasn't enough, desegregation. If that wasn't enough, it's amazing to me that we can't see those things as having an impact on why a black or brown person does what they do. But you can explain away Dylan Roof. It is amazing to me that we can explain away all these, well, his mother and father, they got a divorce, and it is amazing to me. I was talking to a dear friend, Susan, who is white and brilliant and compassionate. And she said, it's not just how unequal it is. It's that I would be given the benefit of the doubt. And it made me see that when I'm innocent, I'm seen as guilty. And when she was innocent, when she was guilty, she was perceived as innocent. That is a gap that is bigger than I want to admit. And still, I see people on a journey of awareness and renewal and seeing differently and opening their minds and their eyes to this thing in this country and wanting to do something to change it. We're not all there all at once. We can't all know what the other person knows. But even in my own realization of the number of times that I don't want to admit it, like the time that I went to the hospital saying, yeah, I hit my head, I passed out, I got up, I did a lecture, I did 2-hour book signing, I caught 2 flights and came back home, but my head feels like it's never felt. It feels like it's in a vice and everything around me is spinning and I'm dizzy and I'm nauseous. And to not get an MRI because she be aight, that kind of experience happens only to find out later and to have to suffer through that head injury because I'm not listened to. Should be all right. The times that I give a pass because I want to keep moving, I want to be able to make it, outweighs the number of times those two people I know have pulled a race card. Way outnumbers it. And I think going forward, it would only be right for me to not look for a racist, but to constantly pull at these roots of racism and say, see that day? All of us are being poisoned by that root. It's going to take all of us together to make the change, to make the difference, and to make this world what I know it can be. I love you. We got the ancestors on our side.